Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tabletopped, and today we have the original crew back. We have all of the core round table. It's been a long time, guys. I know it doesn't feel that way, maybe for the listeners, because they've heard some of the ones we recorded a little while ago, but I just want to say it's great to see you all. Let's go around and introduce ourselves again, because maybe our brains have gotten a little foggy. I'm Nick, your host, and I'm throwing it over to whoever picks up the mic.
It's me, Franco. I got there.
It's also me, Rio. I live here.
And it's me, Shade. I cannot believe it's been 2 years.
I know.
Like, great to see you again, man.
What a time warp.
Yeah,
Let's all do it again.
It's crazy.
I died.
I fully
died.
died. That was crazy, Rio. That was what an arc that whole thing was.
Yeah.
Today we wanted to talk a little bit about something I've been thinking about a lot, which is nested narratives. And you may not know what that is, so let me explain in plain English. That is memories, dreams, flashbacks, flash forwards, maybe even training montages or montages of any kind. How are we going to put these types of storytelling tools into TTRPGs? So, friends, where should we start? Maybe we should talk about the difficulties with this. Like for me, the big difficulty is that as a GM, when I'm storytelling, it's hard to make a lot of these decisions because they usually, if it's a flash backwards in time or something that involves that, it's, you're using a character's backstory that maybe you are expanding upon, and then there's that kind of agreement that is needed. And if you're flashing forward, how do you do something when you don't know what the player's choices are going to be yet?
Yeah,
how
the flash forward to me.
Oh, I got
flash forward. I mean, this is great. So this is a great example. Like if you start a campaign maybe and you're like, all of you heroes standing on the edge of a cliff, the huge, Tiamat raging down from you. The sky has turned black for 10 years since you have started your journey, blah, 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 blah. Like that's a flash forward. You're starting in a different space and time and then going backwards. So how are you going to do that kind of thing when you don't actually know what your players are going to do because of that pesky, player agency?
I would treat those types of flash forwards as more like premonitions or prophecies or like visions or whatever. Like I wouldn't treat them as like non-diegetic, like sort of impositions on what the narrative you expect to unfold is. Cause I think that's just like, I think, we talk about this a lot, but there's like I think it's dangerous to think of TTRPGs as strictly a storytelling experience, because it is like it's still like a game, there's still it's still a game, and then there's still agency and stuff, and otherwise like it's like you can do other things that are like collaborative storytelling and you go back and forth and you talk about it, but then like I've never played something like that, but I can imagine there's like a scenario where you have to kind of come together and say like, okay, let's accept this as the reality.
So that's it. So I agree with you, Franco. I think though.
Whoa!
I mean,
holy shit!
I have
Ever
agreed
since
with
Rio's
you
resurrection, this has been such a weird reality.
Occurrences. I mean, we grew a lot closer after Rio died for a little while.
Yeah, that funeral. That was moving.
But let's not get too invested in that nested flashback. Let's talk about a nested flash forward. So I think that there is an element where, like, I think Nick hit the nail on the head, where you can do a flash forward that doesn't take away player agency, but you have to do very, very generic things. So the way I look at it is there's the starting town and then there's the next town they go to. Those are two towns, and you as the game master are deciding a lot of things about those towns, but they still get to play in that space. Effectively, you're saying this is a time period, a town, and in this time period, these are the facts that you're going to have to know. There is a giant fucking 5-headed dragon, 6-headed. I forget how much Tiamat has. Yeah, 5. Thank you. 5-headed dragon. The skies are dark. It's gloom. It's terrible. The world is ending. That's just like kind of saying, hey, we're going to play in Curse of Strahd, guys. Like, who the big bad guy is. But there will be a period maybe where you're not in Barovia, where you're not in that that time period of, Tiamat's looming over us. It's just a different town.
Yeah,
so
totally.
That's kind of how I would view that. You just need to do general, not specific.
Yeah, I agree. I think that also what you were talking about of like time periods, like if you think of, this is strictly sort of a way D&D thinks about it, but if you break out your character progression into different stages of adventurer, right, you could always just choose to take one that is further down the adventure path. And that way, as a GM, you have more agency to either steer in a general way of like, okay, we're going to be getting into a time in these players' lives where they might be in castles talking to kings much more often. So maybe there's a premonition of like, that sort of thing.
You
did bring up, sorry, go ahead, Ray.
I was going to say, did you guys hear that? I think it was like a Reddit story where there was a D&D campaign and the party went back in time and suddenly there was a mountain on the horizon that wasn't there in their present time. And the campaign immediately derailed to them trying to figure out how to blow up that mountain.
I do remember this story. Yes. Yeah.
So also,
which is a lot of fun.
Shouldn't be there.
A fun thing to put into a flash forward. Landscape changes.
Was it part of like a GM mistake when they were just like narrating?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. And so
it actually
the
may have
players
been a
were making it real.
That may have been a Puffin story.
Yeah.
Puffin story? What does that mean?
I don't remember. It's a YouTuber. I don't know what their story is anymore.
Okay.
But
no, a puffin is a little flightless bird that lives in, I think, New Zealand.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking about. Sometimes I go and speak.
They have a lot of
and
stories.
They love D&D.
They talk a big game.
Yeah.
Honestly,
ever since the resurrection and birds started, being able to think and speak, it's been a real game changer.
It's been really weird, but I was glad for it. But no, I will say you've touched on the one area that I think is dangerous, and I wasn't necessarily considering here. What do you do with their player levels? Because you could risk that moment of like, ooh, we're doing a flash forward and we're going to come back to the story. Now they're going to feel like, but now I'm going to have to become a level 20 because like maybe another subclass drops between when you get to that point in the story later on, and
they want to change,
and they may feel restricted in that, but I think there are other ways to do it. Like you do a different game system, Franco.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you could do a different game system that doesn't have levels, so you don't have to think about that too hard. Mm-hmm. I think that, I don't know what else we have to say about flash forwards because I feel like this is like an uncommon situation, right? Like I don't know.
It is.
I think that it. Yeah, I think that Shade, go ahead. I think that we're probably thinking of similar things, but go ahead.
It is. Okay. It is uncommon, but it's a really great storytelling device. And I know you're right, Franco, that we shouldn't fall into the trap of just thinking of a TTRPG as a story delivery service, but there is power. So, while Rio was deceased, I got back into Magic even harder, and a Final Fantasy set came out, and I revisited all my old Final Fantasy stuff, sort of. And a game that folks don't necessarily like, but I loved, was Final Fantasy VIII, which it's technically a flashback, but it feels like a flash forward at times. Regardless, it is actually a flashback, but I was thinking it was a flash forward, but it was the most impactful bit of that storytelling is what I'm trying to say, that it meant so much and it informed so much of what I was going to be doing in the game. And I didn't like clue on to the fact that it was a flashback for a while. Like I think it's kind of left ambiguous whether this is concurrent or what's going on.
Yeah, and then the thing I was going to also say is that when, especially in certain genres of fiction, and like let's use fantasy and D&D specific, sort of high fantasy, like when you have gods and demons and all that kind of stuff who are giving prophecy. I mean, there's literally spells that allow you to try to like get foresight.
Giving prophecy.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's sort of like then you are trying to give, little bits of delivery of a story or like hints or whatever. And in that way, you that is even harder because then you're trying to work in sort of like the practicalities of information that maybe you want your characters to have gained from that as well. But it's like, how you do that without, taking away agency in some way? Or if it's a flashback so that they gain information, how are you going to do that without altering something that maybe they didn't?
Yeah, those are difficult.
Yeah, for real.
Are we... So, sorry, I just want to be clear. With flash forwards, this is a temporary temporal jump to like
purely
a
narrative, not even
a narrative,
it doesn't even have to be
jump.
gameplay.
Gotcha. Just want to make sure that we're not talking about
that's
like
actually a whole nother sticky wicket of like gameplay enabled time travel, because if you're going to do flash forwards or flashbacks in which the characters can actually have agency, you're trying to give them something, like if it's part of their backstory and you want them to actively narrate what's happening with them, and then you are also giving information, that can also be tough.
And just to throw in while we're talking about flashbacks and flash forwards, Blades in the Dark actually has a whole component for the flashback scene. We're like, oh, we have to rob this bank. Oh, flashback. I talked to a guard earlier. And so that's also a good mechanical way to use flashbacks, is to sort of give the players a chance to change what's happening now via telling a story that they did off screen earlier.
That bear game too.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Rio, because Honey Heist and Blades in the Dark were the two things that made me start thinking about this mechanically, of like, what a perfect way to do that. And it's like works really well within the heist genre, because you're always coming up against unplanned twists or whatever that you then have to, because of the genre, have a twist of your own to deal with it. Like what a great systematic way of like, hey, this is when you can flash back and just talk through what you're going to do or implement an idea. But if you were to do that in a system like D&D, do you think that you could still handle that in the same way? Or I think that in some narrative games, it's a little easier, like Our Haunt or even something like Powered by the Apocalypse. Like those games are a little bit more just like passing of narration. So maybe it's a bit easier, but what about a game like Pathfinder or D&D or something like that?
I mean, there's a whole component to that that's not combat, and I don't see any reason why you can't have those moments, those narrative moments. The combative moments are where, again, it's going to be a little trickier, so you do have to put some thought into that. And getting people to like rewind the character sheets and stuff like that, good luck. You're better off. You're better off just like actually doing it yourself in advance, like knowing, oh, this was a level 5 wizard, so back then they would have been a level 1 wizard, and
like getting touched by a ghost in like 2nd edition.
Oh yeah,
or whatever edition that was. I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I think if you ask your players to change their character sheets going back and forward, things are going to get messed up really fast, and you're going to end up with broken characters. Because I think that was an 8. They erased their 5 and their 3.
Yeah, no, especially for like if you're playing with hard sheets, you know what I mean? You're exactly right, Rio.
It doesn't get easier with like Beyond either, though. I mean, the digital stuff, like it doesn't have an archival feature of this is what you took at each level that I'm aware of.
Right.
Yeah, I wish
I don't think so either.
That would be really nice. Wizards, if you're listening, like I know you are, do better. And then also...
So
classic.
Let's talk a little bit about either there's two ways to approach this. I think maybe we'll start with player agency, because like Franco said earlier, these are games. We want them to have the ability to play the game, even if you are using this narrative jump in some way, or if it's like even like in a training montage doing all this kind of thing. So like how would all of you approach sort of trying to give more than like a narrative description? Like if you actually want there to be dialogue, or if you want there to be a specific event that they see, or anything like that isn't just the GM sort of talking over an event, how would you like give the agency to the player in a way that you are able to still create narrative cohesion and kind of protect the general ability to, even if it's just like, hey, this flashback is over, I really need us to get back to the main story, you know what I mean?
I think that montages are really interesting to me, because I think what's so interesting about TTRPGs, right, is that they just exist in our heads.
Yeah,
right.
And so I feel like every time I do a montage scene that is like, it's literally just like, okay, you're like, I don't know, you're doing a letter writing campaign to like send out a bunch of letters or whatever. like, or, you know, you guys are like shopping for this item, or you're like talking to these people, or you're having a party here. Like, I feel like it becomes more collaborative in that time, where you're just kind of like going back and forth, and it's like, yeah, and then like this happens, and then the other person's like, yeah, and then he's like, I don't know, he's like eating a pickle or whatever, or he's like balancing something on his head, and it's like, okay, yeah, and then we go
see him
over
at
here.
the pickle factory, and he's stealing pickles.
Right. Yeah, it's like one drunken night.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I feel like it's so interesting because it's like it doesn't feel like somebody is telling you a story. It doesn't feel like somebody is like, at least how I do montages, it doesn't feel like one person is sort of like telling you the whole story. It doesn't feel like, you know, you're watching a movie, like an actual movie montage. It's just a bunch of people talking back and forth with each other, thinking about like what would be the most interesting thing to happen. And sometimes you edit each other, and then sometimes you go back and forth.
Yeah.
And it feels like more like a brainstorming session. And at the end of it, you're just left with the memory of the thing that you have just been talking about.
Yeah.
And it's sort of this like ephemeral thing.
The ephemeral nature of memory.
Yeah, the ephemeral nature of memory. I don't know. Is that how do you guys experience like montages? Because I feel like that's how I do them. And then that's how it feels afterwards, where it's just like this impression of having just, you know, bantered through a bunch of stuff that happened.
I think
you know, wasn't that important.
I haven't done
or
it.
Wasn't
that way,
important enough to mechanize, basically. Sorry.
Right. But I feel as though I have never done them that way. But I think I might start, because what I really like about that is that you are, one, letting your characters participate in the storytelling of this montage, but then two, like if you think about quickly running through your brain a period of time, you're going to pick out specific moments that had some sort of meaning to you, or were sort of memorable in some way, whether it was that it made you laugh, it made you cry, whatever it was, just like a weird conversation you had. And so you just get these snippets, and I kind of like the idea of just going around a table, even if it's like, you know, not with the same person ever being talked to twice, but like just going around a table, because then the entire party can contribute to, these are all things that happened that were memorable in this time period, that I think the party as a whole can now put in our shared memory. You know what I mean?
I just got an idea actually about this. Like maybe the montage scenes, like when it's something that's like kind of just like a funny thing to kind of just talk about or whatever. Like maybe the actual like gameplay thing could be like thinking of the characters as all sitting around a campfire and telling saying what they all remembered about what happened. It's like, oh yeah, you remember when you did this or whatever. That could be fun. I might try that next time.
It reminds me of the sketch in Wet Hot American Summer where they all go to town, and it shows them like slowly getting more and more debaucherous, and they're like robbing stores, and they get hooked on drugs, and then they're like recovering from drugs and like all that kind of thing. And then they come back to the camp, and they're like, it's good to get into camp, or it's good to get into town, even if just for an afternoon. Yeah, it's just good stuff.
That's funny.
No, I think that's a good way to do that. I you know, you do want there to be a kind of bullshittery about it, low stakes, right?
Yeah.
It's just people chatting. But if you do need something that is a little bit more high stakes, I really think that, you know, if you want them to really play in the space, you want the mechanization of it, you want to just make sure that wherever you're setting it is far enough removed and tangential enough to the stuff that you're focusing on, the present. You know, so just pushing it that little bit further back, where the things that relate between the present campaign and the future or past, whatever you're focusing on, is really just one element that the players don't have control over.
Yeah.
It's a person, it's a place.
Or you do it like the Wet Hot American Summer, and the montage is canonical only for your players, but not for the rest of the world around them. So it's like, this montage, this has all definitely happened to you. You definitely had these experiences. You found this moss-covered gnome. But then you go back into that same town in like the next session, and like, no, that none of the NPCs will react to it. And then you could do the best of both worlds. Everyone gets exactly what they want, and you don't break your game in any meaningful way.
So basically you're like, make it a bottle episode kind of thing of like, this is completely quarantined within the world. I think that could work. I also think it's like because you as a GM, so like Mac in a game that I was playing a while ago made some stupid joke about Chippy and Bumble, which were this like show or this like story series that all these kids really liked about a chipmunk and a bumblebee, and the bumblebee kept like stinging his own butt, and it was like a whole thing.
Oh
and like, ha, ha,
Did you not watch that as a kid?
I know, exactly, right? And so we were like, but then Mac, for like the rest of the time we were in this town, would have us roll perception checks to see if we noticed Chippy and Bumble. And so like there was this like whole thing, like this meta narrative that became in. So like the one thing I really love about time skips like this is that you can, as a GM, if you write all of the things that they think is funny down, then you can kind of sprinkle it in as like, one-off jokes or like silly ways to connect their story thing to something else that's happening. Or even like Rio, that's a perfect example of like the gnome. Maybe that's like the gnome that they bought like a specific type of hypnotic moss from that like really screwed them up for an afternoon before they went back to camp. Like maybe, they meet that gnome later and he's like, you probably don't remember me, but like, I know you guys and I know what you're capable
You
of.
licked my back.
Yeah. You owe me for the moss that you stole off my back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that like one thing I also want to talk about though is like more specific like gameplay oriented flashbacks and flash forwards, because especially with mysteries and certain things where like reveals happen, I feel like they can be super helpful. Is there a way that people would approach sort of like, let's say a flash forward into like at the beginning of a campaign, or a flashback at the end of a campaign or in the middle, to try to like do a little bit more gameplay heavy stuff?
So I announced the Final Fantasy VIII thing a little bit too soon because
you're like, it was real my ace up my sleeve.
It was the thing that whenever I think about flashbacks and whatnot, because one of the things that I loved about it is you took control of these entirely different characters. Familiar because like there's some shared elements with the characters with the primary protagonists, but it was an entirely different set. And I did a flashback for a campaign I was running years ago at this point, where they played this group called the Clever Rats, which was like a thieves guild in that world, and they essentially played as this group. They had a mission. The mission directly related to things that were already established, but it informed more of it. It gave that extra layer, and they had to uncover it as well. There were elements of it that they wouldn't necessarily get as players, and I allowed it to be like a dream sequence, which is what's going on in Final Fantasy VIII as well. A dream sequence for the player characters. So they had this dream of, I dreamt about being this thief, and we infiltrated this place that we were kind of thinking about how we as players could potentially infiltrate. This informed so much. This gave me some ideas of what's going on with the narrative, who the bad guys really are, where that one missing person is. Like they're trapped in there, and it's a bad situation. And it helped kind of like peel back some of the fog without directly allowing them to change circumstances very much. One thing, and there's of course a little railroading with that, but
no, but I think that's like a really interesting thing. Like because the way I was thinking about it is, the way I would approach these is to really think of it as a one-shot structure, where I
think this type of thing would work better in a flashback fast forward thing would definitely work better in that type of thing.
Yeah, just because in a one shot you have a little bit more of a walled garden sort of feel to it anyway, because you have to get it done in one night, so everyone's sort of expecting there to be a little bit more of a dash to the finish line, and having these little things are gonna allow you to be like, I know where I'm going to be at the end of the night because of this, or I'm like sort of at the end, I'm flashing back and I get to like place in a lot of these pieces that we were happening, that were happening around us that maybe we didn't see specifically of. I think that that's like a good way to really think about it, of like not trying to shoot too far forward or back. Even though I think that that also provides a little bit of relief to the GM, because if you go too far forward, you have a ton of time for them to either forget or for you to put stuff into the game that will allow, like, you know, oh, the shining sword that I saw in this, like, you know, this flash forward, like, oh, that, you know, came 3 sessions later when it was a reward and a drop kind of thing.
There are 2 friends of the podcast, and friends
and only 2.
Gentlemen. Yes.
Thank you two for listening.
If the rest of you are listening, you know, like,
hey, you're
cool.
Probably one of those 2.
I don't know.
Hey.
It's just you, the rest of us, and the other listener. We just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
It's very it's a, you know, Italo Calvino, if on a winter's night a traveler. You are the second person, and the other reader is the other person, but you haven't met them yet.
Yeah.
So, friends of the podcast, Tim,
deep cut.
It is a deep cut. It's very good. Tim and Sean have both also executed a very similar kind of flashback in a one-shot. Same thing that I was doing with Clover Rats there. I actually played, I played in both. What am I saying? I played in the Sean one, it was about a year ago. And in Sean's one-shot, it informed... I was reminded of it because you mentioned that glowing sword. It literally informed how one of the player characters got their sword, and they didn't know that was going to be the case going in. But they're like a pack of the blade, I think, warlock, and it informed a whole bunch of things. And it was Devotchka House that he used for that, which you've all played in some fashion. And then Tim did a really nice one shot as well, where we had a little brief hiatus for his campaign for a while, and then we were coming back. But he said, "Hey, I've got some player characters. It's going to be a one shot. I have the character sheets. You'll get to make a few choices on it, but otherwise, it's yours. It's preset, pre-gen." And it was the introduction of spell jamming into that campaign. Cool. And we didn't know that it was going to necessarily tie it. He just said, I want to do a one shot. It's been a while since we played, but it was really the introduction. And we were a doomed group of essentially astronauts. We didn't know we were going to TPK at the end, but and maybe we could have made it out, but we didn't.
You rogued one it.
Yeah, we rogued one it.
Cool, actually.
And it ended with that's clearly going to the world that we've been playing on previously, and we found the damn ship in like a few sessions later, back in the main campaign, and that was a real blast as well. So
that's really cool.
Yeah,
I think that
made
like.
Me, go ahead.
Sorry, keep going, Franco.
That makes me think of. Sorry, this is like I have so many thoughts. I've written down so many things. But I'll start with the thing that you just were talking about, Shade, where I think that if you step into my open table OSR corner, not that type of OSR, you know, the good ones.
I guess you could decide which is the good one, but we obviously mean the ones who aren't a bunch of shithead racists.
Yes. Yeah. Just playing in an interesting, kind of little like open. If you're in an open table situation, right? Like that could be every campaign. You roll out with like a new party of adventurers, right? They all get TPK'd, but they like leave behind messages or artifacts or notes or equipment or letters to their loved ones or something that your later characters stumble upon. I think I love that type of idea. Shade, like what you were talking about, is like this sort of like one-off, and you're like, oh, we made an impact on this world, but we were doomed to fail.
Yeah.
But then like getting to play that out and then getting to choose what that actually is. And then also like your main characters kind of don't know exactly what happened to them, but they can kind of be presented with these like clues and stuff. And I think also this kind of leads me to another thing I wrote down, which was like, I think I don't really like doing flash forwards and flashbacks. I feel like if you're listening to this and you feel like it's like something you might have to do to be like a good DM or like really good at storytelling or whatever, like, don't put that pressure on yourself unless you really want to do it, right? But I think, this is not something that I am interested in, but I think one way to kind of present like past and future, even future, you could even think of it this way, is just like through environmental storytelling. Like if you're in a place and you're just like, oh, you see this like ancient, like these like, these ancient ruins or whatever, and there's these markings, and then it like all these like little clues kind of tie together in the environment to kind of tell you like a bigger story without having to do the sort of the like the conceit of doing a flashback, that now it's like, okay, like wait a moment, we're not characters anymore. You're the audience, which is you as people, as human beings around this table. And now we're going to watch this. Maybe one of you is going to play in it or whatever, but like we're all going to be an audience to this situation. And then we're going to go back into playing the characters. Like it feels like a little bit more immersion breaking. And I think that's when I'm sort of more resistant to that type of thing, like flashbacks and fast forwards. But I know that everybody's fun is valid, but like, I know that, we've done this type of thing before, like it can be fun, but like for me, I feel like it's more interesting to not know exactly what's going to happen, to not be told, or like, don't like I feel like when you go into a flashback, you're being very prescriptive about exactly what happened. Like this is exactly what happened. But I like the idea more of like doing an environmental thing, or even just like, around the campfire type of story, like we were talking about before, of like it being kind of like this ephemeral thing. Man, it's like a little bit more true to life, Yeah.
Franco has a brand to build.
T-shirts coming soon.
One thing that made me think, Franco, when you were talking about like environmental storytelling and kind of merging the thing with Shade and Franco's sort of past comments, is like I really like the idea that you can even use this as a way to like give your party or give yourself a break as a GM from like progressing a story. Like you could be in a dungeon and they, settle down at the end of a session. They're like, breaking out the campfire, and you say like, and like as the campfire throws out light, you see, a pile of bones. And then you say like, hey, by the way, everyone, next time I'm taking a little break from the story, everyone roll up some level 3 characters. We're going to jump into a one shot, and you do a dungeon, and it's that dungeon. And then you end with like, and the, like your bones sort of like fall to the floor as the monster spits you out. And then like you're at the campfire again for the next one. So it's a nice way to also like give yourself practically a way to be like, whew, I'm giving myself a break from this main story that we're going down.
I mean, again, I would advocate doing, because that's so deterministic of, okay, someone's got to die, and that could be the tricky bit for flashbacks. I would even advocate switching the system, especially there, like do a 10 candles.
Yeah, totally.
And the world is just that dungeon.
Yeah.
Scary.
And you're just going through. Yeah, that is exactly what I was thinking too, of like just make it so that you are able to give yourself a hook in and out of a one shot or a break that you're doing, and that way you can work in, trying a lot of new systems, trying out new stuff. Especially if you're, a GM in a long running 7-year campaign or whatever. You're probably looking for a chance to stretch your limbs a little bit, and that could be a great way to do it.
Yeah,
trying new stuff is bad. Don't do it.
Don't. Yeah, that's right.
That's
right.
And honestly, if you do a flashback and someone dies, just hand wave it and they come back.
Now, actually, you could do something
sick,
very fun though, where
it's
if they die, you step aside with that player and go, okay, so your character died, and I didn't expect that. But we have a very interesting opportunity here. It's set in the past. Why is your character alive right now? Can I throw something out there? You've been a mimic the entire time.
Yeah. Yo, that's sick, actually.
Like, are you
that would be so exciting. Yeah.
Are you the friend that they were trying to save?
Just like Rio,
and you took their name and decided to adventure in their name or whatever.
Definitely not.
So fun. I love that idea. Yeah, like because you can, especially if you're going backwards, you can retroactively make anything true. And so that's awesome.
Speaking of stories that go back and forth in time and characters that die and then come back, how game breaking would it be to have someone like what was his name? John Harkins from Doctor Who.
Harkness,
who just was every time he died, he just came back. He was a fixed point.
I don't think he would be game breaking in general, just because he's essentially just a he's a player character or an NPC that has a special feat, and that is immortality.
Yeah.
Because like it didn't like reset around him. It would be more game frustrate, like impossible to do like the butterfly effect or Groundhog Day. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's just annoying. And that's coming from someone who loves that genre. I do not want to play that game.
That's a narrative genre, not a game genre.
Yes. You can do it. It's just going to be very hard.
Yeah. You know what's funny about Jack Harkness is that he was in Torchwood, if you guys ever saw Torchwood.
Yeah.
And so it just feels like there were so many situations where it's like, he's got to die, because he's the immortal guy. And so is it like he's like less careful, or is it just like, I don't know, bad writing?
Well,
this is a huge thing in 40K as well. Because in 40K there's a specific Primarch called Vulcan, who is a perpetual, which is someone who is the same thing, comes back to life every time you kill him, all the way down to an atom kind of thing. And it does kind of break the game, because everyone's like, these Primarchs are supposed to be these all-powerful godlike beings, but this guy keeps getting wrecked every single book he's in.
I mean,
but he has great deals on clothes.
They will dissolve though.
That's
so true. No, but the Doctor Who thing, that is absolutely bad writing. I love the series. Bad writing is a staple for it, and
part of it.
I mean, it's just part of it, and
it's camp, baby.
I guess it is camp. I never thought about it.
Oh, it's 100% camp.
I feel like that makes it more palatable, I think, in my
yes,
memory.
Absolutely. But Harkness also turns into the face of Bo. I just wanted to point that out there. It's like not 100% confirmed, but it's more or less 100% confirmed that he turns into that giant nasty face. So anyway, that was our
one last thing.
Who guys?
Yeah, the back from our Who corner. So one last thing I want to kind of talk about, which is sort of foreshadowing as a literary device, such a great thing to do. One thing that I want to kind of speak on, like my favorite way, and something that I've kind of been inspired by Cyberpunk, the game that Rio and I have been playing, and I love very much, is that they have these tarot cards that they throw up on the walls throughout the world, and a lot of them are associated around mission spots, but you can find them whenever. And all of the tarot cards have sort of a description of what the tarot card reads or means, and it will, if you kind of think about it afterwards, it will basically give you a really good, like, oh, this character that I met at this point and then found this tarot card nearby, like that is that character, and I should have been way more wary of this person. Or like, oh, this like, the 10 of Pentacles or whatever means that this sort of vibe was coming up, and I didn't quite clock it at the time. It didn't make sense. I didn't know how I could have figured it out. But I think that stuff like that can make you seem like a genius when your party, discovers these things and then like retroactively kind of reconsiders what they mean. Is there any sort of way that either mechanically or environmentally or just storytelling wise you've tried to do this in your games, and what has been successful?
I just put the information in there, and then when they find it, they feel like they're like, oh my God, it's this or whatever. Like with the last hunting of the boar. Yeah. Like with the last hunting of the boar, there's so many things in that we put into that module. That's the module that me and Nick wrote. there's so many things that we put into that module that every time I've run it, people have just been like, oh, it's because of this. And then everyone feels so fucking smart because they're really smart. And then it's like, I think when you make things kind of obvious, the foreshadowing kind of just happens.
Yeah.
And like in my other game too, where, you know, I have like these like eggs have come, these like black spheres have come from like the sky or whatever and crash landed and stuff. And I wonder if Michael's listening, but the thing that they keep saying about the sort of the god's body corpse of a god thing that is on the mountain is like, yeah, that's true. And then when they find out, when they confirm that what they thought was true is true, then they'll be like, oh my God, they also feel so smart. Or they're like, oh wow, that came out of nowhere. Or, oh, we totally should have saw that coming. It's like, oh, that's why that, like that. Those moments happen all the time, as long as you just like don't tell people things, and then but you're like, oh yeah, do you remember when I did this? And they'll be like, oh yeah. Or it's even better when a player says that to somebody else when they're like, oh yeah, because of that. And it's like, why didn't you say anything? It's like, I don't know. I didn't think it was that important.
I mean, but you said one of my favorite things there, and that is set up a mystery that you don't have the answer to, and it's not something that's like pressing that they need to solve right now.
Oh, I have the answers to everything.
Well, sure, you can do that, and I've certainly played that way as well as a GM. But you can also, if you're in a more difficult part of life and not really planning stuff in advance, let them fill in those mysteries and conjecture, and then that becomes the answer, and then they are geniuses.
Well, I think I don't even mean like, because I don't plan ahead as far as story, but I do plan ahead as far as like things that are already true about the world, right? And so all these truths are already kind of set up, and then so they all kind of like fit together in some kind of way. Yeah. And then, I mean to say, like, I don't really plan ahead for what's going to happen. I just plan ahead for what already has happened and what the situation is.
Yeah. And I actually think, like Shade, we've talked about it with traps and like mechanical designs within your story as well to do that. That's one of my favorite tricks. I love doing that all the time.
It's, you had the answer. That's right. Yeah. That's the thing. And a lot of times it could be, that's the other thing that's really nice about the flashbacks as well. You were talking about it as a little break. It's world building for you. I love world building. I truly, truly do. Genuinely one of my favorite things to do, but I also am a tired man, and I don't world build as much as I did in my youth. And
why do I feel like you just started a country song?
I don't world build nearly as much as I do.
I want.
No, we didn't say nation building. We said world building. That's what they.
Yeah,
Rio,
what they like to
go
on.
I do want to still have those mysteries. Like we ended. I mean, none of you have been in this game for a minute. But we ended on the last session of Waterdeep. They're getting ready to go to the forest outside Neverwinter. And I mentioned that there was a druidic circle there, and at some point in history, they kind of vanished, but there are remnants of them, and they're all turned to stone, and they are mostly in like repose and comfortable positions, but they have horrified looks on their faces. Immediately everyone started conjecturing stuff. I don't know. I was just literally talking off the cuff in that moment.
Shane, I'm still in that game,
and you're probably going to play in a couple of days. But I've figured it out since then. But in that immediate moment...
He's lying.
I've done the same thing. Like Shade, you're super right. Like, because for me, I have a hard time, and I think a lot of world builders do, but like I have a hard time starting from a blank slate. So like coming up with a prompt like that, and then letting the group start generating ideas, and then taking bits of each that you really like and using that to then go from A to C kind of thing. That is like such a fun and rewarding thing for me as well.
There's nothing more fun when the players give you an idea.
Oh yeah,
you just start going like, just like rubbing your hands together.
Absolutely.
And then they're just like, oh no, shit, we gave him that idea. I was like, that's a good idea.
Like, I'm gonna run with it.
I'm just one man. I can't play everybody. If you guys give me a good idea for the bad guys to do something, then I'm gonna do it.
I'm one man and I'm tired and I don't world build anymore.
start strumming that banjo. No, but like Mac did this to himself, I guess, earlier, where in the game that I'm playing, where we're playtesting his system, he was like in character creation, like, I'm a divorcee, like 2 years have gone by. And then he gave up those memories. So he was like right at the event where that was sort of new in his character's mind. And so it became much more of a thing of like his character being like, oh, I want to try to see what that person is doing. And then I was like, okay, she works for like the evil organization now and is like a close friend / maybe romantically involved in like the supervillain, which was sort of like a Superman type person. And then that led to a huge amount of stuff that kind of came up because of that. So it's like, let your characters give you good ideas and then break them with it.
Could I take us off tangent or just into a tangent for a second? Because I need to ask something.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever put together that, like, I've heard the divorce story and I've always loved it. It's a lot of fun for the character. But I don't know if I ever picked up that he had is he a fan of like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? Is that what he's trying to fucking do? What's going on there?
So what happens? I can give you, this is Rio's biggest gripe with our podcast is that we talk about our campaigns, but don't give enough context. So good call out. Why don't I give you a little bit of a rundown?
Thank you.
Essentially they're playing in a world that everyone has like sort of superpowers, but also is run by an organization called the Order, which is sort of like a sort of Superman-led organization that is like laws must be followed and they must be followed perfectly. And if you are if you do not follow the laws, then you are a villain and need to be put away in prison.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. So I really wanted to play with the themes of like order versus chaos. And so like they are part of the villainous thing, but they're much more like, at first they were much more friendly and nice to them and much more open to them being individualistic. And now they're sort of in the middle in this weird way. Anyway, so they're in a prison and the prison riot happens with this like villain, like famous super villain being like, hey, let's like free this prison of all these people. We can start sort of our little revolution here. They are successful in that. Mac's character is named Roger Detroit, and his power is that he's a slightly better than average salesman. So he can trade like a paperclip for a pencil. Like very, like
he's good at trading up.
Yeah. And so he got to the point where they had found this villain who had been put in this chair where they were like essentially digitizing this guy's mind because he was a tech savvy person and putting him into a database, which has become more important later. But they, trying to save him, unplugged this character before the upload was complete. So he only had like 98% of his mind. So then Mac felt really bad about this, and Roger Detroit hated that in the last 2 years, like how bad his life had become because he had gotten divorced, and then he had started selling these used cars that had faulty AI that caused the AI apocalypse in the city where like 30 people had been run over by these faulty AI cars. And so he had all this guilt and stuff. And so he was like, I'll trade you the last 2 years of my life for you remembering the last 2 years that were deleted. And so that's how he kind of went back. And so that's why he didn't have those 2 years. And it's been very fun because he recently got all like his power traded out because of a huge event. And now he has a perfect regeneration power, which now has fixed that. And so not only has he remembered all the things that he had done lately that have been consequential, he's also remembered that 2 years where he has done other bad things, and so he's kind of become a new character, which is very exciting.
That's fun.
So the 2 years, the 2 year swap was his 2 years that he forgot, and then he instead forgets the 2 years of the gameplay that you guys had just done.
No, so this was first session, and he had said 2 years leading up to this session of my character's backstory, he is willing to trade away to basically have deleted. So he is a sort of a person without those memories. so he forgets.
Got it.
And then he has done that so this NPC can remember all of their memories perfectly. So it was like a cool trait and like an interesting narrative device, because he started the session playing a very specific character, and by the end it was a completely different character. So that was cool.
Fun.
That's sweet.
Yeah. We're getting to the end here. So does anyone have any final thoughts? Anything that they want to talk about around this stuff before we kind of cut it short?
Yeah, I had one kind of a product recommendation, I guess. So Mythic Bastion Land, which is the Into the Odd, sort of like Arthurian Knights rules like, but still it's actually got some crunch to it. He put some very cool like combat maneuver stuff into it. But it's a very cool system. It's like a very weird and eerie sort of like Arthurian Knights thing. But the one thing that there's like one mechanic that's very interesting in the game, and that is like how the game is like very specific about like the ages that you're going through. And so like every knight kind of starts at a certain like age, and so you're either like a new knight, like a squire or something like that, like a young knight, and then you're like a knight in his prime, and then you're an old knight. And so like
old knight who's tired of world building.
Yeah. And there's like, and basically like you, like the main story of the game, right, is like you're questing and you're doing stuff or whatever, and then there's these huge time jumps that can happen in between. And then you go on to your next stage of life, and then you play the next set of quests, and then another set of, time passes, and then your next quest. And if you're an old knight, you might die, that type of thing. And all of that is sort of like proceduralized, like you're kind of like rolling to see how much time passes, rolling to see if your old knight dies, and then you're kind of re-rolling your stats every time too, based on like, just the fact that you're getting older. And so like maybe you're better because you're in your prime, or you're getting worse because you're getting older. You might become more wise as you get older too. And so it's a very interesting mechanic, I think, as far as like, we're kind of talking about like we're not really talking about time jumps, but I thought it was a interesting mechanic and thing to kind of look into. And the playtest is free, so you can check that out. It's called Mythic Bastion Land. It's very good.
Cool. A mechanic that I'll plug really quick is the 2d6 deciding system. If you are doing sort of a quick flashback or whatever, and you need a resolution system, I think that's the best and easiest one, where you roll 2d6. Everything up to a 6 is a failure, 7 to 9 is a mixed success, and then everything over that is a complete success. Very easy way to just sort of roll your way through a quick narrative time skip or flash forward, flashback, montage, whatever you're going to do there. Because I do think that, as Rio and Shade were talking about earlier, especially in certain sort of more mathematical systems, that is a tough thing to kind of accomplish with character sheets and whatnot. So having a quick resolution system is always helpful. Anything else?
Yeah, 2D6 is how I handled the epilogue to Argot.
Yep. It was a lot of fun. A mechanic I'll recommend, his name is Richie at Eli's Auto Repair.
Oh, God damn it. I was going to do that same joke. I was waiting on the...
I thought about that joke too, but I was like, you know what? We're going to stay on track.
Mine was going to be called Old Jim.
Mine's my actual mechanic.
No,
I do like the 2d6 system. I'm a big fan of I've mentioned it before, but you awaken in a strange place.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
You could slot that anywhere. It's literally, let's build out the system, let's talk about what we're going to care about, and you can set the parameters of, hey, it's still the Forgotten Realms, guys, but we're going to focus on a few things today. Great way to do a flashback. Great way to do a flash forward.
Yeah. And speaking of flash forward here, unless Rio, do you have a last thing that you want to plug? And if not, I'll wrap it up.
No, I was going to say, as a mechanic I like is Flash, where you repay the mana cost to play it from your graveyard. That's always a good
one.
It's a good Flash too.
That's not Flash.
But
okay, I'm going to cut this off before we get so deep into magic. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to Tabletopped. If you want to listen to more, we have a huge backlog. And in 2 weeks, we'll come out with another episode on Monday. If you're interested in getting a hold of us, maybe you want to talk about the schedule. Has it been working for you? Do you like it? Then just head on over to our website, tabletopod.com. Hit that contact form. Let us know what you think. And please suggest any topics that you would like. We always are looking for more. If you're interested in supporting the podcast in other ways, you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/tabletops. There's more stuff than you can shake a stick at over there. So feel free to head on over. Even as a free member, you get access to a lot of cool stuff. All right, everyone, we will see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.
Bye.